Scholars. All right, so first of all, it was great to see so many of you today in class. It's just really a joy for me. I know it's a joy for Miss Andrea as well to get to talk to you, to interact with you. But I did want to continue and do a video for those of us that were still a little confused or for those of us that missed class to talk about how to do some of the problems that are featured in Module 4, Lesson 33. And what these problems tend to involve is they involve word problems where we need to divide fractions or decimals. So this is really what we're going to be working on today, is figuring out how to work with word problems that involve dividing fractions or decimals. Now, if you were in class with us this morning, you saw us go through this problem here with Mrs. Hayes having half a liter of juice that she distributes equally to 6 students in her tutoring group. And the question we were answering, we worked on part A, which is how many liters of juice does each student get? So we went through step by step what to do here and why we were doing it. If you need a refresher or if you weren't there, this slideshow is available to you if you go into our math slides, which are in our Google Classroom, and you go to Wednesday's math slides and you see here is a step-by-step walkthrough. If you click on that, it will take you directly to the slideshow that we were just talking about. I am actually going to spend some time now working, and by the way, we never got to part B, but the way we think about part B is also available in this slideshow. I'm now going to be working on the second problem from this slideshow, which is going to be very, very helpful, I think, when you are working on your exit ticket. It is the same exact concept that is covered in your exit ticket. It's just a different word problem. So, the first thing you'll notice in the slideshow, it says stop. This word problem involves dividing decimals. If you need support with this, please see this slideshow featuring a step-by-step walkthrough, or this video by Ms. V, or this video by Eureka Math. So again, the concept of dividing decimals was covered in Monday's work. So it's Zern lesson 30 if you want to do the Zern lesson that goes along with it, or you can go to these slides or either this video or this video. All three of those give some idea of how to divide decimals, which you do need in order to successfully complete this problem. But we're going to go ahead and get started on this problem together. So it says here, Carlo buys $14.40 worth of grapefruit. Each grapefruit costs 80 cents. And so what we're doing here is we want to know, there's two parts to the problem. The first part is how many grapefruits does Carlo buy? So I want you to stop. And if this is confusing you, if you look at this and you already feel overwhelmed, I want you to do the following. I want you to think about this word problem, but I want you to think about it without, let me do this actually, without as if these weren't the numbers we were using, as if we were using entirely different numbers. And I'm going to explain why in a minute. Let's say I said to you, instead of this, that Carlo bought. Let's say he bought, can't see that, can ya? That would be difficult, sorry. Let's say he bought $10 worth of grapefruit. Let's see if I can grab both of these at once. I cannot. So I'm going to just move this here one at a time. He bought $10 worth of grapefruit, and each grapefruit costs $1. And the question was again, well, how many grapefruits can Carlo buy? Well, now, what would you do here? If he buys $10 worth of grapefruit and each one costs $1, then I would know that he could buy 10 grapefruits. How come? Well, he starts with $10. That's my total. And then he's buying, each time he buys, each group costs $1. And 10 divided by 1 is 10. If you would like to see that as a picture, he's starting with $10, right? And then if he bought one grapefruit, that would be $1. I'm going to say G for grapefruit. Let's see, can you see that? One grapefruit is $1, right? Here's another one. $1, $1, $1, right? Because each grapefruit is $1. So if you go all the way through, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. How many grapefruits did he buy in the end? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And so what I'm doing here is I am taking 10 and I am splitting it up into groups of 1, and I will end up with 10 groups. If instead I said that each grapefruit costs $2, then again I would still have 10 as my total, but now it would be 2, 2, 2, 2, and 2. Now how many groups? So now it's 10 divided by 2, and that would be 5 groups. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So we actually do know how to do a problem like this. The thing that might be confusing us is how do we do it with decimals? So what we just went over was, right, the concept here. So what I want you to get out of that is that if you're confused by the decimals, right? If you're confused by the decimals, do yourself a favor, take the decimals out, put in numbers that are comfortable to you, and see if you could then figure out, well, what you should be doing. Because I know, for me at least, when I first saw this, I would be confused not just by the decimals would totally throw me off and I would forget even what to do. So if you take out those numbers, it might help you understand what you should be doing. Should you be adding? Should you be dividing? Should you be subtracting? And that often helps, all right? But once you get that down, once you realize that the correct thing to do is to divide, now you need to figure out, well, how can I divide this? So ask yourself, when I'm doing a division problem, and I will again recommend that you go into this slideshow because it is incredibly helpful. It does talk about this, right? When I'm dividing, it means the dividend, this first number, that's the total amount we're breaking up. And the divisor, this second number, that's the amount that's in each group, right? So going back to this problem, my total, or the first number, that dividend, that's the $14.40. I'm actually going to delete that for a minute. So in this case, I have $14.40 as my total. That's how much I bought in all. And then it says that each grapefruit is 80 cents. So now how much is in each group? Well, each group is going to be 80 cents. Right? So now this looks a little challenging. Maybe I don't know how to do this. Maybe I'm not comfortable doing this. So two things. One, you can, and this might take a while, but you can make a tape diagram that is worth this $14.40, and you can split it into small little pieces of 80 cents. So this would be one group of 80 cents, here would be another group of 80 cents, right? That would be 80 cents, right? Here would be another 80 cents. One of these plus another one of these would be, if you need some help with this, that would be $1.60. And you could go all the way through and then you would count your groups to find out how many you had. But what we talked about in class, and again, if you go to this again, if you look here, we talk about that you can rewrite this as a fraction, because a division symbol is really just another way or a fraction is really just another way to show a division symbol. And what I'm going to do here is change this around just so it's a different color, just so we can see it. So I'm going to take my first number, my dividend, and I am going to write it as my numerator, 1440, and it is going to be divided by this 80 cents. Now you might ask, well, why is that helpful, what I just did? Well, because now the other thing that I talk about in this here is that I can multiply anything by 1 and it'll stay the same, right? 2 times 1 is 2, 5 times 1 is 5, 2/3 times 1 is 2/3. And instead of just making it that I multiply by 1, I'm actually going to multiply it by 10/10. The reason I'm going to do this is because 10/10 is 1 whole, so it's the same thing. But if I multiply by 10/10, then what I can do here, and I'm going to make that another color, so I'm going to multiply this by 1 whole, and again, that 1 whole is going to look like 10 over 10. Well, we've talked about when we multiply by a decimal by 10, then what we're doing is we're really moving it 1 over on the place value chart. So we're taking this 8 and we're going to put it now in the ones place. And we're taking this 4 and we're going to now put it in the ones place. We're moving it over. And so this is going to be 8, and this is going to be 144. Now, why is that helpful? Well, now, if you'll notice, my problem, without actually changing anything, no longer has a decimal in it. And I know how to do this. And if you don't know how to do it standard algorithm, that's fine. Now I have something I can work with more comfortably. I can do 144 divided by 8. And I can do that by making a tape diagram, making 144, and making groups of 8. I can use standard algorithm. Whatever works best for you, you can take this and turn it back into 144 divided by 8. And you'll see it looks very similar to what we did over here. The only difference is now we no longer have to deal with a decimal. Now, if you have some trouble with this, that's totally fine. That's what office hours are for. Please come by and talk to me and Miss Andrea. We are there, and we are willing to help with this, right? So that's the first part here. Now, the second part, it says, at the same store, Kari spends 1/3 as much money on grapefruits as Carlo. How many grapefruits does she buy? So, well, now we know. Now we have to shift gears a little bit. Now I'm thinking, Kari spends 1/3 as much money. So she spent 1/3 of the money that Carlo spent. So in order to figure that out, I need to think about how much money did Carlo spend? He spent, again, $14.40. If Kari spent 1/3 of that, then I need to divide it by 3 or multiply it by 1/3. It's the same thing. If I multiply this by 1/3, because it's 1/3 as much money, then what I'm going to end up with is 1440 divided by 3. And again, okay, I have a decimal here, but if I multiply it by 10, I'll again end up without a decimal. And I would end up multiplying, it would be 144 divided by 30. All right? The other way you can think about this bottom part, and I'm about to run out of time on my YouTube video, so you'll have to excuse me rushing this, but the other way I could think about this is if she spends 1/3 as much money, she's going to get 1/3 as many grapefruits as him, right? It follows logically. If I spend 1/3 of as much, I will get 1/3 as many. So when you do this, you end up with, I believe, 18. So it turns out that Carlo ends up with 18 grapefruits. And since she spent 1/3 as much money, I can multiply 18 times 1/3, which would get me to 18 over 3, which would get me to the number 6. All right? And if that went a little fast for you, I'll slow it down at some point and post another video with that, all right? Bye, scholars. I miss you, I love you, and I hope to see you tomorrow.